Thank you, Master of the Ceremony, distinguished Chairman of CGC, Mr. Shi Chen, dear CGC's members, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great pleasure to be with you today. I want to thank China General Chamber of Commerce for hosting such a warm welcome event. I did not expect this. First of all, please allow me to extend my sincere greetings and the best wishes to all the entrepreneurs and the business leaders present here, and the Chinese companies in the east coast of the United States. I also would like to pay my great respect to our American friends who have offered or given great support to China's reform, opening up and modernization, and promoted the growth of the robust China-US friendship. Thank you. In the early years of my career, I have worked in Washington and Chicago, respectively. I want to add a little more. From 88 to 90, I worked as a junior officer in the Chinese embassy in Washington. That was my first assignment. And before I went to Chicago as a Consul General, I was sent to Canada and had almost 3 years in Ottawa. So I actually had 3 assignments on this continent. I did not expect that I would come back to the States again. So this is my 3rd time to come back to the States and the 4th time to come back to work in the continents. Although I can't see, it's, I'm not quite familiar with, things happening here in the US, but after so many years, I want to see so many things have changed, and I need to learn a lot more about the new situations and things happening here. So it's really a very great challenge. But since I arrived in New York 3 weeks ago, I have received warm welcome by lots of old friends, and also have made lots of new friends in the city. I've been actually very busy. The first day I arrived in JFK, I was welcomed with heavy snow, and which is a good thing. In Chinese tradition, when you have a weather like this, you are traveling, which means you're going to have a good luck. So I see that a very good sign that I could start my career, a new career here for a couple of years in a good way. So since that day, I attended lots of events already, and I have felt there is a very strong desire and aspiration in the city from all sectors of life that people treasure this good friendship and cooperation between China and US. It's 2 great countries, and they want this good friendship and cooperation to continue. They have greatly contributed to the development in the past 40 years, and they want to continue to contribute in a way to help developing this good relationship to a higher level. So I really think this is a good time to come, and with all the people who we can work together to help this good relations to grow. So it's very good to come to New York at this time. I enjoyed being with every one of you. thank you for coming again today to welcome me. I came to know CGCC when I was the Consul General in Chicago between 2007 and 2010. During those 3 years, I witnessed the faster growth of CGCC's Chicago chapter. The past 13 years have made CGCC even stronger and more representative, especially under the leadership of the 4 chairmen. And thanks to the support from entrepreneurs like all of you, CGCC has undertaken important missions, published the annual business survey report for 5 years already, hosted influential events such as Select the USA Reception, Trade and Investment Forums, and the Legal and the Policy Series. I believe every one of us should acknowledge what CGCC has been doing is very important to build a mutual understanding and promoting cooperation between our 2 countries. Ladies and gentlemen, this year marks the 40th anniversary of China's reform and opening up. It is also the 40th anniversary of the establishment of China-US diplomatic relations. Over the past 40 years, with joint efforts from both sides, China-US relations have maintained stable with remarkable progress. At the same time, China has adopted a peaceful approach in rising as a global power. This approach has not changed and will not change in the future. We have no intention to replace any country in the world. The ultimate goal of China's domestic and foreign policy is always to help Chinese people to gain a better life and at the same time build an international community with a shared future. You won't believe this. More than 30 years ago, when I first been given this job to work in Washington, I landed in New York. I got to borrow New York to go to Washington. So that night, I was in the airplane, looking down on the city. I was shocked by the lights on the streets. I could see from the air that it was quite bright, so many cars are running, and I was even more amazed or surprised that the next day when they took me from New York to Washington. Most of the way I was suffering from the jet lag, but when we were approaching Washington in Maryland, I woke up. It was in September. I saw the beautiful houses in the colorful forests. That was a time of changing colors. And those were the pictures I saw in the painting. Remember, that was my first time to come out. So I asked the driver, who live in the houses? And they got used to this. They just said, ordinary people like you and me. I said, okay. Then the next day, I was even more shocked when I went to the supermarket to buy those everyday living things. At that time, China was, in China, if you want to buy something, you have to use the coupons issued by the government. We were not producing a lot of sense there. So I went there with all those surprises and the shocks, with a sincere hope that someday people in China could have a life like our American colleagues has been enjoying for a long time. And the thing I missed the most after 2 years when I went back to China was a highway. Because at that time, even in the early 90s, there was no highway in China, not even one. And so by the time, I think it's in 1992, the first highway was built linking Beijing to Tianjin. And it's merely like, less than 200 kilometers. we just couldn't wait to borrow a car to drive on the highway. I was not surprised to find lots of cars just went apart because those cars were not used to the high speed. So they were everywhere, broken cars. That was the time when we started, or we were in the process of the opening and the reform. Now I'm very happy to see that we were coming up. China has become the second largest economy, and people in China are having a much better life than 30 or 40 years ago when we started our opening and the reform. So we really believe this is a way, the right way to develop that country by having our people enjoying a better life. Just a few days ago, President Xi Jinping and President Trump had a very important and a positive meeting during the G20 summit in Argentina. The two leaders agreed to step up negotiations towards the removal of all the early imposed additional tariffs, stop the imposition of new tariffs, and exchange visits at an appropriate time. This has sent a quite positive signal to global market and the people of our two countries. Both China and the US have gained a lot in bilateral investment and trade over the past decades. Our economic and business ties are mutually beneficial in nature. It is more constructive to bake a big cake than just focusing on our differences. In this respect, China has made its own efforts by opening its market and expanding imports based on its new round of reform and opening up. We have hosted the world's first ever Import Expo in Shanghai last month. President Xi Jinping announced at the expo that China will further expand import, broaden market access, and foster world-class business environments. In the coming 15 years, China's import of goods and services are expected to exceed 30 trillion and 10 trillion US dollars respectively. That means a big cake for all parties, including the US. Actually, yesterday I was here attending a promoting conference by the group from Shanghai. They're preparing for the second Shanghai Expo for importing things. Because President Xi has made it quite clear that China is going to continue to open the door even wider to the outside world. And the second expo is going to be held in the same scale, if not bigger, next year. So it's time to get involved, and they give a huge discount if you apply early. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past years, both China and the US have consumed lots of energy on addressing the bilateral economic and trade issues. However, our cooperation in many other areas are still making progress. At the same time, I should say, even the trade issues, talks or negotiations on addressing the trade issue are making progress. For example, China and the US have maintained sound cooperation in law enforcement and cybersecurity. The two countries have had a substantial exchange of views on issues of mutual interest through the law enforcement and the cybersecurity dialogue, and joined the Liaison Group on law enforcement cooperation. The two countries have taken positive efforts in response to the issue of cross-border crimes and the new psychoactive substances such as fentanyl. This shows our cooperation covers a wide range of areas and has a global impact. The two countries need to work together towards building a community of shared future for mankind. Our relationship should and must get better in the days to come. Ladies and gentlemen, China General Chamber of Commerce is one of the most influential business organizations that represent Chinese enterprises in the US. It plays a significant role in China-US economic and trade relations. I hope CTCC will further leverage its platform, utilize its resources, continue to promote cooperation, and develop opportunities in our business to grow and for our bilateral relations to thrive in the long term. As a new Consul General, I have a very large team of more than 100 people here. We will continue to contribute our efforts to help bring people of our two countries together to promote the cooperation and the communication between the 10 states in my jurisdiction and all parts of China as more and as far as possible. I want to work more closely with everyone field, with CGCC, to get this job done in a better way. Thank you very much.